right, Chief, here's the first question. How old are you, and what's your birth date?
I am 73 years old, and my birth date is February 24th, 1940.
Okay. You were born where?
San Francisco.
San Francisco. How come San Francisco?
That's where my parents lived.
Okay, all right. All right, that's good. And the next question is, how did your family come to Marin County? Your grandfather, your father, how did they get over here to Marin County?
My father and mother moved our family to Fairfax in 1947.
Okay.
And my
So-
dad worked at a garage, and he's always been in the gas station business, but he worked at a garage in Santa Fe called Rhodes Nash.
Okay. All right.
And until he was able to buy a gas station in Corte Madera.
Oh, okay. So he ended up in Corte Madera for how long? How long was he in Corte Madera? You know, about?
1960.
Yeah. So he's
59?
Yeah. Okay.
They sold the house in 59,
Yeah.
yeah.
How did the family end up here in Nicasio?
My wife and I moved our family to Nicasio in 1968.
1968. Okay. Okay. So, you have any brothers or sisters?
I had 6 brothers and sisters. One is no longer living.
Okay.
I had the 3 younger were 2 girls and a boy, triplets.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Triplets.
And-
That must have been fun being around those guys. So they're younger than you.
Yeah, they were 5 years younger.
Okay. So you did some babysitting.
No.
Okay.
And then I had 2 older sisters,
Okay.
and older brothers. One of the sisters is still living, and my brother's still alive.
So what schools did you go to? I know you went to Drady, but what
I
grammar
went-
schools and stuff?
I went to St. Anne's in San Francisco,
Okay.
out on, wasn't Gary, it was
That the one in San
Irving.
Anselmo? No.
Huh?
In San Anselmo or Fairfax? The St. Anne's.
No, that was in San Francisco.
Oh, San Francisco. Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Oh,
And then when we moved to Fairfax, I went to Fairfax Central
okay.
and then went to Drake,
Okay. And you graduated from Drake when?
1958.
Oh, okay. That was a good year. That's the same year my wife graduated with you. So
It was a vintage year.
to me, yeah, it's like Chief Marcucci says, it's the Harvard of the West.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, how'd you get your nickname, Spike?
When I was born, I was a 4-pound preemie,
Okay.
and my father took one look at me and said, anything that small needs a tough name, so we're going to call him Spike.
Is that right? That's how you got the name.
That's the way the story goes.
Look at that.
anyway.
Well, that's a good story. Stick to it. Yeah, that's good. How did you and when did you meet your wife?
I met my wife in high school years.
Okay.
She was going to Marin Catholic. I was going to Drake. And one of my buddies was dating a girlfriend of hers. And I ended up being the designated driver to drive her home from a babysitting job where she was filling in for a girlfriend.
Okay.
And
Was she at the same grade you were? Or was she behind you in school? Or?
1 year behind
One
me.
behind you. Marin Catholic.
Yeah.
All right. That seemed to be quite common. Drake to Marin Catholic, that connection.
I seem to recall her initial attitude was, boy, what a jerk.
Well, maybe we'll interview her, see what's going on. So, you've been married how long? 50?
60, 50, 51 years.
51 years.
This Sunday.
This Sunday? Wow! Congratulations! Congratulations! How many children you have? I know you have a son. I spoke to him on the phone. So
I have 3.
3, and they're all about. Are they in the county or out and about?
I have a daughter that lives here in Nicasio up on a ranch at the north end of the valley.
Mhm.
And I have a daughter that lives in Seattle, who's an executive with Boeing.
Okay. And the son?
My son lives in Napa with his girlfriend
Okay.
and has several jobs.
And
He's primarily a marine surveyor.
oh, okay. Grandchildren?
2.
2. And how old are they?
4 and 7? 2.
Okay.
4 and 2.
Yeah.
Oh, excuse me.
Okay.
4 and 12.
12. Okay, and that's all right. It's okay.
You can tell Nicole said she was 2.
Yeah. Yeah. She'll like that. Yeah. I know you with the CHP, so this question will cover a little bit of that. Where are some of the places you guys have lived? I mean, before you moved here, but did you live all over the state?
When we were first married, we lived in Fairfax,
Okay.
and my wife worked at the Bank of America there in Fairfax,
Okay.
and I was a toll collector on the Golden Gate Bridge,
Oh, okay.
and I took the test for the highway patrol, and surprised even me, I passed it,
Okay.
and
You
When-
so your I'll get a little ahead. Your first assignment out of the academy was where?
Baldwin Park, which is east of Los Angeles,
Okay.
in the San Gabriel Valley.
Oh, all right. Okay. And then you moved around the state or did you just come right up here?
Now, I spent 3 years in the Baldwin Park office, got qualified on motorcycles,
Okay.
and we moved back up to Marin County in 67.
And pretty much stayed here?
Yeah.
Wow,
yeah,
that was
yeah,
very fortunate.
we rented a duplex out in Sleepy Hollow,
Okay.
and through a friend of mine, Al Rezak, I found out that Nick Kobseff, who was half owner at the restaurant,
Yeah.
wanted to rent his house because he was opening a new restaurant and bar in McLeod, California.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Okay.
And
Okay. So motorcycle school. How did you have to qualify to get in that? Take a test before you.
yeah,
You go back up to Sacramento.
yeah.
And how long was that school about?
I think it was 2 weeks.
Okay. Did you like it?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Did you ever have any accidents? Did you ever lay it down?
A couple of times.
But not hurt bad?
Huh?
Were you hurt bad at any time? Anything broken?
I broke
Broke that wrist?
that wrist. That was on the Richardson Bay Bridge.
Okay. Just a wet situation laid it over, I guess.
Big
It was
bud-
wet, raining, what?
No, I was coming on the on-ramp from the undercrossing under the bridge, so I was in the right-hand lane up against the rail. Car in front of me obscured my view of the car in front of him, which was stopped, and the guy was out with a gas can pouring gas in his car,
Okay.
and I judged that if I just weaved to the left, I would probably run him over. And so I pulled it hard to the left and hard to the right and laid it down, slid up the highway about 75 feet until I got to one of the expansion joints on the bridge, and then I separated from the motorcycle. It went end over end, and as it separated, the handlebar came up and broke my arm.
Okay. Wow. Okay. Was that the worst accident you were in, pretty much?
I went. I was in an accident in Sleepy Hollow where a kid pulled right out in front of me, and I hit him broadside, went over the top of his truck,
Wow. Okay.
broke my leg.
Oh wow. Okay. So you've seen some stuff. Yeah, you've seen some stuff. So did you were in the military service?
Yes, the Army.
Yeah, Army. And where did you serve?
Berlin,
Berlin. Okay. You went to basic training where?
Fort Ord.
Fort Ord. Okay. I'm on it, right. And how long were you in the service?
I was 3 years. I was in the Armor Corps.
Okay. Is 3 years common for the Army? Is it not usually 2? And then,
If you're drafted, it's 2 years. If you sign up, it's 3 years.
okay. So from taking tolls at the bridge to the Army, was that the
No, it
next?
was the other way around.
Oh, Army.
I
High
got out
school?
of high school, went in the Army,
Okay.
came back 3 years later,
Okay.
got the
Told-
job at the bridge.
Took the test. Do you recall how long was the academy? How many weeks was the academy back when you took it?
6 weeks.
No.
16 weeks.
16 weeks. Yeah. That one. Now it's now over 32 weeks.
Wow.
I have a nephew who's graduating in a couple of weeks, and I was telling Spike that now part of the thing is they have to have 60 hours of Spanish, so they can Mirandarize the drunk drivers. Anyways, that's another question. So you were just looking for a job when you took the CHP. Did you take any other police department application?
Well, no, I was on the Golden Gate Bridge as a toll collector.
Right.
And a friend of mine who was in the sheriff's department came and told me that he had signed up to take the test for the CHP. And I had always admired the highway patrol.
Right.
So I said, well, I think I'll sign up for that.
Okay. And how old were you? About?
I would have been 23.
Okay. Just starting out. Yeah.
Yep.
Just starting out. So your first assignment out of the school is to Southern California. Are you married yet?
Oh, yeah.
I'm married. So both of you moved down to Southern California?
Moved down to Southern California.
Yeah.
Bunked with a couple of other guys that went down there with me. And
Yeah. 3 years, right? Thereabouts?
no, for about, 6 weeks, 8 weeks.
Okay.
And then sent for my wife and kids.
Okay.
Moved them down there. I found a house to rent.
What was that like? Is it hot country? Warm country? You
It's
know.
nice. It's
Nice?
weather's very similar to here.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah. That's California. Okay. So you're in the service for 3 years over in Germany. They're still there, by the way, I think.
Well, 2 years in Germany
Okay.
was,
Yeah. Did you enjoy that? Did you
Oh,
enjoy
yeah.
the experience in Germany? Yeah.
yeah.
That's kind of thing.
It had its moments. Berlin at that time was governed by the four Axis powers,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it was 110 miles behind the Iron Curtain.
Ah. Okay.
And so they had to, everything had to be brought in by truck, or if we were taking troops out to go on maneuvers or anything. There's no place to do maneuvers in Berlin except for the Grunewald, which was a city park.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they got upset when we ran over their trees and things with tanks.
Yeah, I can't imagine that. Yeah. So also now you're back in this country. You're with the CHP. You get assigned to Marin County on your motorcycle, right?
Yep.
And now you decide you moved out to Nicasio. out here, and then you became. How did you become a volunteer fireman? How did you get involved being a fireman?
Well, in the first month that I was out here, I was walking down the street to go to the post office and met Glenn Kirsch, who was walking around out here. And I said, "What's with the fire department?" And he says, "Oh, it's a all volunteer fire department." He says, "You live here, you belong."
Okay, so you joined.
So I joined the fire department and went to a couple of fires, went to a grass fire at Big Rock, and
Yeah.
that was
What
amusing.
What kind of training did you have in those first months or so? You recall? What kind of did they give you training?
The training consisted of each year in the spring, everybody clear their gardens and their brush and everything, and they would bring it down here and they would put it out in the back field behind the Rancho Nicasio. And the only truck the department had then was an old forestry truck, a 1950 Ford cabover. And with the jump seat in the back. I don't know if you remember those.
Yes, I do, yeah.
And anyway, they'd burn this big pile of brush till it was all burned down. And then they'd fire up the pump on the old truck and squirt water and put it out. And that was quote unquote the training.
That was the training, okay. Yeah. So you're a volunteer now. When was that about when you joined? Did you join as soon as you moved out here, pretty much?
Yeah, within 6 months.
Yeah, okay. So you're a volunteer fireman, entry level, and you work your way up to become chief, right?
Yep.
And
mind you, when I joined, they had no gear, no protective gear.
Wow.
No helmets, gloves, anything.
Just
you went to the fire in your Levi's and T-shirt.
Yeah.
And
I can recall those days. Yeah.
The second fire I went to was in the basement of the old red, what was a red schoolhouse.
Yes.
It's painted white now.
Yeah.
And the oil furnace had overflowed the oil and was a concrete floor. And when we got there, smoke was billowing out from under the building, and the whole floor was on fire with burning oil. And there were 2 other volunteers and myself. And I can clearly remember Roy Bunt, who was the chief, racing over and opening this door that was stepped down to the cellar, opening this door, and Rudy Gabani was right behind him, both hands on his back, pushing him forward, you know.
Yeah.
Go in and get the fire, Roy, you
Yeah.
know. Roy had a hard hose. Roy had the hard line.
Oh, yeah. The old booster line?
The little 3/4 inch booster line. Roy gave him a great big shove into the cellar, which was full of black smoke from this burning oil. You can imagine how toxic that was. And I reached over Rudy and grabbed Roy by the collar and hauled him back out.
Wow.
Coughing and sputtering.
Oh, yes. Yeah, that would have been a very bad situation.
Yeah.
So,
and it was then that I made up my mind if I was going to be involved with this organization, that I was going to see to it that there was changes made.
okay.
There was going to be training and protective gear and all that good stuff.
In the early days, were you were associated with Marin County Fire? No, yes?
This Nicasio Fire Department today and always has been under the command of the Marin County Fire Department.
Okay, all right.
We're a 501c3 organization, but we're under the command of the Marin County Fire Chief.
So right now, if you were to break an alarm, Woodacre would start responding?
Yes.
Okay, right now, so, yeah, so. And that's the amount of water you have, is what I'm seeing in these 2 rigs behind us. That's
it.
That's it. No, not a tender, we don't have a tender coming? Nothing, that's it. Wow.
That's it. We're kind of a first in,
Hope, yeah.
as I say, and if any of the volunteers see this, they'll chastise me for it. We're the fire Band-Aid.
Oh, yeah, yeah. You gotta be practical. About how many calls a year you guys run? Medical calls, fire calls?
Oh, it's varied, but we've run as many as 60,
Okay.
you know, and
And the amount
this year doesn't seem to be too many.
yeah. And do you have a limit on how many volunteers you can have?
Not really. It was 15 or 16. What?
Yeah.
I think that's what it is because
Yeah.
of insurance.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. Insurance and how much equipment you have to protect them.
Well, the county pays our compensation insurance.
All right.
And so if we want to go over the high was 20.
Okay.
And then when it got around to the compensation insurance and like that, the county set the limit at 16 because of the expense
Okay.
and because we had 16 volunteers at
Right.
that time. And we've never gone above that since then.
Okay. Yeah. Is it difficult to get volunteers today? In 2013 is
No, not really.
that right? Okay. Yeah.
They're willing to sign up and come down and do the training. And
Okay. And the training today consists of what? Once a month? Once a week?
it varies. It's usually twice a month.
Well, okay. Yeah. That's normal. Yeah. Yeah. There's not too many volunteer fire departments around anymore.
No.
No, not too many. And when you come into the business, who was the fire chief at the county at the time? You recall?
Louis Bloom,
Louis Bloom. Okay.
good old Louis.
Lives on Louis. Okay.
He was a great guy.
He was a good man. He lived out here on the knoll, just below
Yeah.
the top. Yeah. And the assistant chief lived on the other end of the county, I think, something like that. Yeah. So okay. So now you're chief. And how long were you chief? Are you an active member now? No, you're not an active member. But when did you turn over the chief's job to another person?
70 something,
Did you? Okay.
71, 72. I'd have to go back and
Yeah.
look at the record.
So, when you turned it over, did you step away from the fire department?
No, he was still,
You were still involved.
you were chief in 1971, 72. Right?
Okay, it must have been 73 then.
Okay. All right.
No, I have always stayed a member
Okay.
and stayed on the board.
All right.
And, after a while, I achieved the rank of old fart.
Old fart. Yeah. Yeah.
And,
We have a few of those around here today. So, yeah.
I was the one that would come to the meetings and say, now, that's not how we did it in our day.
Yes. You're the guy they don't want to see.
Yeah.
Yeah. Tell me about your experience with Skywalker. When Skywalker first came here, Lucas started building the ranch.
Well, I first met George Lucas when he was filming American Graffiti in San Rafael.
Okay.
And I was working an evening shift with the highway patrol, and I knew that they were shooting in San Rafael, and I rolled up to the location because the production manager had done a film out here, and I knew him.
Okay.
So I wanted to just stop by and say hello. And he showed me all the cars that they'd fixed up. whatnot. He says, I want you to meet our director, George Lucas. And this little short guy come over and shook hands. Said he was pleased to meet me and
Yeah.
went back to work. And then when he bought Bulltail Ranch, I signed on as a part-time consultant for their fire protection plan and wrote a preliminary fire protection plan for them. And my first recommendation was that they form their own industrial fire department,
Okay.
considering the distance county had to come and the distance
Yeah.
we had to come, and we weren't equipped to deal with the size of buildings that he was building, 3-story Victorians and whatnot. So he initially poo-pooed that idea. He didn't need a fire department.
Okay.
And then some months later, he hired an official ranch manager
Okay.
who I talked to about it.
Yeah.
He went back to George and convinced him that he should have his own fire department.
Okay.
And I was imagining something along the lines of what they had at C&H Sugar over in the East Bay.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it
That's okay.
it quickly evolved into a more complex fire department.
Yeah.
They bought a regular engine, Type 1 engine, and a squad, and
But
had training
Yeah.
and all that. And then they became co-responders with the county and the Casio.
okay. Would Sky, in the early days, would Skywalker Ranch come here as a backup if you guys broke a call? Would Skywalker come out and back you up?
Yes.
Okay, they did that.
Yeah.
That was cool. Because you are far away from everybody. I mean,
Sort of unofficially, they would come to the end of Lucas Valley Road. You know, I mean, if it was way up the north end of the,
up by the reservoir or something.
yeah,
Yeah.
that was a little far for them to.
Okay. Yeah. But doesn't this is part of the Skywalker property right behind us, isn't it? Kinda. Or is
At
it?
the very top of the ridge, his property comes just over the ridge.
Okay. And I see he's got vineyards or something up there right now. Yeah. Vineyards of grapes and olives, I think, is growing up there someplace. Yeah.
Now, up here is a grape vineyard that belongs to somebody else.
Oh, okay. It's not George's. Okay.
You know, his vineyards and olive groves and whatnot are down on the main ranch.
Okay. All right. So anyway. So, you're still on the board? Are you still on the board of the directors? Or, no,
Well, I don't know. I've been in the hospital for the last 2 years.
okay. Well, may I ask what's happened to you physically?
I had had 2 heart attacks in a row.
Oh, okay. Okay. So you've been in and out of hospitals.
Yeah,
Any
more in than out.
any new stuff in here? Any new veins and?
Oh, I had bypasses before that.
Oh, you did. Okay.
Yeah.
And so, how are you feeling now? I mean,
Good,
feeling good? Yeah. So,
good. I've got a defibrillator pacemaker right in here.
oh, okay.
So
So,
it's only gone off once, and I was walking in the hallway at 2 Bon Air
oh, okay.
going to see my cardiologist when all of a sudden, bam, I found myself slammed up against the wall.
Probably run into my wife there, Dr. Young. This guy's-
Dr. Young.
That's, yeah.
Yep,
he's
same-
done well.
same cardiologist.
Yes, yeah. Small world, it is. So, but the question is, always the question, Spike, is what would you do different in your life like what we talked about, is there anything you do different than, like, growing up here, you grew up here in Fairfax, and Army, CHP, being associated with the volunteers. Looking back on it, anything different?
Not really.
No.
It was a good life.
Yeah. And you brought good equipment to the department.
Huh?
You brought good equipment to the department. That cost a few dollars
Yeah.
to get that. Do you guys have a fundraiser each year, or do you? I mean, like, a casual.
We used to have fundraisers,
Yeah.
and the fire department has a ladies auxiliary,
Okay.
and do they still put on the steak barbecue? They used to put on steak barbecues down at the Shadows
Okay.
and raise money that way.
Right. Yeah.
And,
So your budget is, how do you get a budget here? The budget is from the county to give, to buy equipment or do stuff like that?
no, we buy our own stuff.
Everything you buy your own stuff.
Yep.
So you have a few dollars in reserve someplace to buy Coke or beer or something
If
like
we
that.
if we have a major acquisition like the yellow truck here,
Right.
we went to the county and got Gary Giacomini to pony up a little bit of money.
Yeah.
George Lucas ponied up a little bit of money, and
Oh, okay.
then we went to the people in town and said, empty your pockets.
Okay.
And,
And they did.
We also give a lot of grants.
And we get grants.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I was always writing grant
Ask her.
proposals and whatnot.
That's a good way to get money. Yeah, it is. Yeah. So you got a question, Mr. White?
I always have one question, Chief. If miraculously we could rewind the clock, would you do it all over again?
Oh yeah,
Zip right down,
I
yeah.
might do a few things different,
Look
like
at
I wouldn't fall off my
that.
motorcycle.
Yeah. Wouldn't lay it over.